right. Come back here. All right, good. Tilt it down. Whoop, tilt it down. Yes. Okay. For now, we'll do that. We might have to move it a bit. All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jillian, and I'm the founder of Sharks for Kids. And today we're really excited because once again, we are at the Bimini Biological Field Station on the South Island of Bimini for a live Shark Science Google Hangout. So we're going to talk a little bit about sharks, some of the research that's being done right here, and then we're actually going to do some shark science live on camera for all of you to see. I'm going to go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves, the team here working with us today, and then we'll jump right in and meet our special guest.
Hey everyone, my name's Emily. I'm the assistant manager here at the Shark Lab, so I help with a lot of the administrative things like volunteer applications, but I also help out with the ongoing research that's going on. And this little puppy right here, her name's Fanta, and she's a lab dog, so she says hi as well.
Hey guys, my name's Anthony. I'm our outreach coordinator here at the Shark Lab, and I'm in charge of setting up our daily tours as well as the different programs we have out here, like our research experience where we have guests who come out and just hang out with us for a week and do the work we do for that entire week. So it's a really good program for people to really see the work we're doing and just spend some good time with sharks.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. I'm a volunteer here. I've been here from August till another month in December. I've got undergrad in zoology and I graduated a couple of years ago. So I'm here to get some more field experience.
All right, so we're also going to introduce you to our special guest. All right, so this is who you're going to get to see today. All right, you guys can all see that. This is a nurse shark, and this is one of the sharks that's in a, okay, go ahead, in a semi-captive pen here at the lab. If you think of fences that you've seen with farm animals outside, the lab essentially has the same kind of thing, but in the water, where juvenile lemon shark and nurse sharks are actually kept for brief periods of time. They're used for some of the tours, like Anthony was talking about. Come here and actually get to see and learn a little bit about the research that's being done and actually meet a shark up close and personal. Some of the research that various students are doing also uses these sharks. So this is our very special guest, and today we're going to teach you and talk to you a lot about this specific species of shark, which is one of the several species the lab works with right here in Bimini. Go ahead and do. All right, so the first thing we're actually going to talk to you about is we're going to do, Anthony's going to go through some of the anatomy of some of the parts that really make this a shark and some of the unique characteristics that nurse sharks actually have.
All right, do you want to put down the chair so we can see a little bit better?
Yeah.
All right, guys, if you give us 1 second, we're just setting up our camera a little bit better so you guys can get a good view of our friend here.
Yeah.
Oh no! Lost the.
Oh no! Seriously? Again?
Are you guys?
Oh,
no, it's still up there.
there we go. Okay, we're good. We're not gonna put anything.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, after our technical difficulties, as you guys can see, I've got my friend the nurse shark here, and these guys are actually very, very cool. So they're not necessarily what you think of when you first see sharks. Like if you think of a great white, or even like a mako shark, bull shark, they look very torpedo in shape, right? Well, our nurse sharks are very different. That's because they live a different lifestyle than those other sharks. You guys can already tell they're a little more flat. They have a flat head with eyes that sit on the top of their body. They also have their dorsal fins back here are pushed farther back on their body. If I were to have a baby lemon shark in my hands, its dorsal fins would be right under my hand. Okay? So these guys are very, very unique. One thing you'll notice, and I'll start at the nose, is they almost have like whiskers and make them look more like catfish, right? So what those are called barbels, and what they help the nurse shark do is actually pick up any movements in the water that their prey might be giving off. So these guys are kind of a sit and wait predator. They just sit there, wait to feel water moving over those barbels, and then what they'll do is they'll use that sucker mouth of theirs to actually suck their food right in. Okay? One of the really unique things about the way they feed is in their stomach here, they have a chamber that they'll fill up with gas. that when they open their mouth, there's a huge negative pressure that sucks everything in front of their mouth in. One of the really, really cool things and videos we've seen is of a crab right in front of the nurse shark's mouth that the nurse shark was going to feed on, and when it did open its mouth, the crab actually completely broke up before it even hit the shark's mouth. So it's very, very strong pressure. So when we work with them, we're especially careful with where our hands and fingers are. Next thing you guys will notice is their eyes. Nurse sharks have very unique eyes. Here, I'm going to get them a little closer for you guys. And what's so unique about their eyes is they live in areas where there's a lot of low light, so it's kind of dark. So they live up under rock ledges and coral heads at the very bottom. So it's very, very hard for people like us to see without any lights, but these guys actually see very well in that type of light situation. Now, one of the other things that's really important about their eyesight is the ability to protect it. Like I said, these guys live under rock ledges and coral heads, so they like things like crabs and shrimp. Crabs can obviously try to poke at their eyes and try and get them to let go. So these guys will actually do something to help protect them by rolling them back into the back of their heads, so that it's only the white part of their eye showing. That helps them protect it. Other sharks will use something called the nictitating membrane, which is just like an eyelid that they'll cover over to help give their eye a little bit better protection. Now the next thing you'll notice is sharks do have noses. If you look at the very end of where those barbels are, you'll notice those small little holes called their nares. That's just where they like to smell their food. So they might pick up on some fish scents and follow those around. That's why you might see them swimming back and forth when they're swimming underwater. So they're trying to pick up on a fish scent. Now the other thing is their gills. You guys can see his gills are kind of moving right now. But he's still trying to breathe even though he's out of the water. And one of the very cool things about nurse sharks, so when they do breathe, they'll open their mouth, suck in some water, and then use special muscles in their throat to push that water back over their gills, and that's called buccal pumping. So it really helps these sharks to be able to sit on the bottom and just sit completely still and still be able to breathe. Other sharks, like our black tips or our great hammerheads, actually need to keep moving and swimming in the water to be able to run that water over their gills to get the oxygen they need. All right. So, some more really unique things about this shark. One of the ways we tell whether it's a boy or girl shark is we look at their pectoral fins down here and look for something called claspers. And what claspers are just two little finger-like projections that sit in between the two pectoral fins. And you guys will notice this little shark doesn't have them, so this is actually a girl shark. And then, of course, the rest of the body. Like I said, you have the dorsal fins here. You have your pectorals. I mean, your pectorals. These are your pectorals. These are your pelvic fins, and then you have your caudal fin back here that helps the sharks move in the water. So that's really about it on the shark anatomy, guys. It really makes these guys very cool. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is very, very unique, and it's kind of hard to see. So let's see if I can point them out to you guys. On the very tip of their nose, all the way back to their mouth, you might see black little dots. It almost look like zits or blackheads. And what those are called the ampullae of Lorenzini. And what they do is help sharks pick up electric currents in the water. Now you might be wondering, well, why do they want to pick up electric currents in the water? And if you've seen Shark Week, you'll see some sharks go after cameras and strobes like that and things like that. Well, it's not to annoy cameramen, it's to help find their food. All right. So in really any type of species body, you know, things like nerves will give off electric currents, and of course those nerves help move our muscles. But some prey items like to sit absolutely still, and they still give off one electric current, and that's actually their heart. So the heart never stops pumping, so that electric current is always in the water, and sharks can pick up on that. The best example is great hammerheads. They can find things like stingrays that can even bury themselves just by looking for their heartbeat. It's very, very cool what these guys have been able to adapt and evolve to.
Cool. I'm just going to jump back in, and we're actually going to introduce our classes real quickly. So we just want to say thank you for, I know a lot of people are watching, but for the two classes that are actually joining us live. So can Mrs. Scarfoni's grades 7 and 8 in Ottawa, Canada, say hello to everybody? Hi. Great, and we also want to welcome Mr. Vandershoot's grades 6 and 7 in Sarnia, Canada.
Oh, cool.
you guys so much for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing some of your questions later on. Now that you've learned a little bit about the anatomy of this shark, we're actually going to go and talk a little bit about some of the other research that's happening here. Some of the exciting programs that the lab is involved with. The lab was started in 1990, so it's been around for 25 years. If you've watched a show on sharks, a lot of programs on Shark Week and programs on Discovery Channel and Animal Planet that have featured the work being done here right at the lab that was started by Doc Gruber. And it's really, the focus has been lemon sharks. That's why the lab was started. But it's now evolved into lots of different elements of research working with different species, including great hammerheads, bull sharks, black tips, Caribbean reef sharks, and these little nurse sharks. And Bimini is home to some amazing species, some incredible mangrove habitats, as well as coral reefs. And it's also part of a shark sanctuary. The Bahamas is a shark sanctuary, which means it's illegal to catch and kill sharks here. They're protected. There are only 12 of these that exist in the world, so it's a pretty important place for these animals. And all over the world, sharks are facing various threats: shark finning, shark fishing, killed for different products. So having areas around the world where they're protected are incredibly important. And it also means that the species diversity, these different types of species, not just sharks, but other animals in the ocean, is being protected here. And the lab's work is a big part of actually having conservation laws put into place. The science done here has led to better efforts to protect these animals. All right, we can talk a little bit about the tags. Sure.
So also at the lab here, we really concentrate on tagging all the sharks that we manage to catch, either on our long lines or through gill nets, which focus on juvenile sharks. We can either tag the sharks externally or internally. So some of the external tags are really good if you're out snorkeling or diving and you see one of the sharks you've tagged, and you can see the code on the tag that allows us to know where they've been, how they're doing, and also when we recap the sharks, we can see where we've put any of the internal tags, how they're recovering, which happened quite recently with a reef shark. When we inserted the little tag, we then saw that it was completely healed and that was doing absolutely fine, which is really good for us to know. So these are the little, so some of these. So we also do some of acoustic tracking on juvenile lemon sharks, which is just a small tag that's inserted, and then we can then track the sharks in an area in the north of the island, and that allows us to know if they are bold or shy and how that affects the survivability. We also do a pitch program, which really focuses on juvenile lemon sharks for a couple of weeks in May, June time. And this is a really intense tagging project which we aim to collect 99% of the sharks, and they're inserted with a tiny little tag which your dog or cat at home might have, more or less the size of a grain of rice, which we just put a wand over, and it then gives us the code so we know if there's a recap shark, a new shark. We then can see if we recap it since then, how much it's grown, which is really interesting for us to know growth rates and population. And we'll show you the workup as well, so you can see how to put the tags in.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do is when you go out, no matter where people are working with sharks, whether it's great whites, tiger sharks, or even nurse sharks, there's a procedure that happens called the workup, and this is the data collection from the animal. It's like when you go to the doctor and get a checkup. It's very similar. We want to collect information from this specific shark to learn what it's been eating, its habitat use. Also, we can determine growth rates and various things about the shark just by collecting specific data. And this workup is what we're actually going to show you. So this is what would happen if we actually went out today and we caught a shark. And so when every shark is caught by the lab, this is exactly what is happening. The data that is collected, and it's recorded, and it's been kept for 25 years. So it's really interesting what you can see, various things that have been discovered about sharks because of the amount of data, the information that's collected. And actually the data we'll work with today will be a part of that. So you guys are actually going to witness some live shark science that's used as part of the data set here at the lab for their various projects. Do you want to grab the tab? You can ask. Do you want to do this?
Can you go very fast?
Do you actually turn it around? Oh, no, it's not. Okay.
Let's get some facts. Go ahead. Alright, so you guys want me to hold it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, do you want to go first? Okay, guys, so one of the main parts of a workup is actually getting measurements on the shark. So when I say measurements, there's three main length measurements that we take. The first one is called pre-caudal length. So that's the area right before the caudal fin, or right before the tail. So you measure how long the shark is from the tip of its nose right before the caudal fin. So this shark is about 40 centimeters pre-caudal length. And then since nurse sharks have an oddly shaped tail, some sharks, when we catch them, we also measure fork length. And that's where in the caudal fin there's an actual fork in the tail fin. But since nurse sharks have evolved to live under ledges and places like that, they need to be a little more flexible, so their tail's actually shaped a little bit differently. So we actually just take a total length, which is also from the tip of the nose, right to the tip of the tail. So this little shark is about 58 or 59 centimeters total length. And as you can tell, I'm measuring everything in centimeters, and that's just the scientific way of measuring things in the metric system, which is a little bit different if there's any classrooms from the USA to what you're used to. Another measurement that we like to do is called girth. So this is pretty much around the shark's belly and right up into its armpits is what we like to say. So it's like the width of the shark. It's like measuring your pant size. So this shark is about 21 centimeters in girth. And you can see Jillian's beside me, and she's doing one of the most important jobs during a workout, and that's called taking data. And that is what all this is used for. It's not worth it unless we have someone actually recording the data. We also, during a workup, we will take DNA and isotope samples. So today I'm just going to show you an isotope sample, or a DNA sample, sorry, and they go in this little vial, and in this vial there's liquid, and that preserves the sample that I'm about to take. And then we send them away to a lab, and they get analyzed, and then we can actually compare DNA from different nurse sharks to tell who's related to who's mom, and who's dad, and such things like that. And it's really cool, actually. We do this for our little baby lemon sharks as well. And that's just taken right from their dorsal fin, and it doesn't hurt them. It's just a little snip of their skin. And then there you can see, it's just a little tiny clipping. And then from that little clipping, we get their DNA. Also, we put specific tags in sharks, as Hannah mentioned. And this shark has already been caught before. That's called a recapture. So it already has a little pit tag inside of it. And that's the tag that Hannah was talking about that's similar to a tag that you'd have inside a pet at home. So a little microchip that gives it a special ID. So if I scan this little shark, I can find what its pit tag number is. And this is called a pit tag reader. And you can see on this little screen, it's hard to see from the glare, but there's a number that goes across. And this number, when I can read it to Jillian, the last 4 digits is 7827. If she's recording, she'll write those down, and then we know that that's a specific shark that we caught, and we can look back in our database and find that shark. And each time it's caught, we can then compare all these length measurements that we've taken over time. So it's a good way to keep track of the sharks. Lastly, we also like to take weight measurements on our little baby sharks. When we catch bigger sharks, it's not so easy, so we usually don't do it. But for juvenile sharks, we like to measure how much they weigh. So we use a little scale. Anthony's grabbing right now. I can turn to it. Do you want to read just read the number? This is the little scale and a net, and we'll look at how much it weighs before. So Hannah, you have the number? Yeah, it's 1.17. Take my weight off.
Yeah, so
A kilo? Nope.
yeah.
Yeah.
So 1 kilogram.
So this little baby weighs 1 kilogram. So it's not a very big shark, but it'll go. So that's essentially a workup.
Yeah, guys. So like we said, this just is the data that really helps us understand just as much as we can about sharks, and help us identify them so we know who we've worked with before.
Cool. All right. So, like we said, this is really, really important data that's collected, whether it's from a great white or a tiger shark or any species that's being worked with. Specifically here in Bimini, a lot of nurse sharks and a lot of lemon sharks are the ones that these guys spend most of their time with. And that's exactly what happens, and all that data is used to determine different things about these animals, different life stages. Knowing the length of the shark, we can actually estimate how old it is. Knowing the weight, we can look at the condition of it. So it's all really, really important data. And the more we understand about sharks, the more we know about their feeding habits, their growth rates, their life history traits, which are kind of how fast they grow, how many pups they have, different things like that, really help us to get better laws put into place to actually protect animals. So science like this was a big part of the reason that Shark Sanctuary here in the Bahamas was actually established. And so we're going to go ahead and let you guys, I know everyone has some questions, so if you want to go ahead, we'll just keep going back and forth. So if we want to start with Mrs. Scarfoni's class, if you have a couple of questions.
Okay. There you go.
All right,
Nice enough.
Why do they have
Why do they have
What was that? Can you repeat it?
Our question is, why do they have fins?
Okay, so sharks have fins really to help control their motion in the water. Kind of mentioned to you guys earlier that back fin, all the way back here, called their caudal fin. You know, when the shark moves, that's going to give him that forward motion in the water. Now, the rest of these fins actually help the shark control its direction. On certain sharks, like black tips and great whites, things like that, they'll actually use their pectoral fins, the ones in the front, either turn them, rotate them a little bit to make them go deeper in the water or come up higher in the water. So they really have fins to help keep them from doing crazy things while they're swimming and really control their swimming, like their dorsal fins on top help keep them from doing barrel rolls constantly as they're moving forward. So they have these different ones to just really help them move and be really fast swimming machines like we know they are.
Thank you.
question. You guys have one more?
I do.
Okay, one more. Okay, Joyce, what's your question?
Why do you want to save sharks?
Why do you want to protect the sharks, save the sharks?
Sharks are really, really important for the health of the oceans. No matter where we live, even if you guys don't live right near the water, every single day, all of us rely on the ocean. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, we are connected to the water every single day. And sharks are a big part of the reason we have healthy oceans. They keep the food chain balanced. So if you remove all the sharks from an area, all the animals they eat, their populations start to go up because they no longer have a predator. And then as their populations go up and up and up, there's not enough food, so they start to die off. And it actually goes right down the system, and the ocean gets sick and it actually starts to die. So essentially, having sharks means we have healthy oceans. And this is incredibly important, but 100 million sharks are being killed every year around the world. 100 million. And they don't have lots of babies. They don't spawn like other fish do. They don't have thousands and thousands of eggs. Some sharks only give birth to one baby. Right? So their populations are actually going down, which is a problem for the oceans and actually a problem for all of us. So all of this work, in part, is because protecting them is really, really important for the health of the oceans and for all of us, no matter where we live. Great question. All right, we're going to switch over to Mr. Vandershoot's class, and we'll do a couple questions, and then we'll go back.
Perfect. Camden, do you want to do the first one? Yeah. Nice and loud.
Okay. How wide can a whale shark open his mouth?
How wide? Their mouths are probably about 3 feet. So just over like, about a meter or so. It's big, and it's really important that they can open them that wide because they swim along like a giant underwater vacuum cleaner. They're the biggest fish in the sea, the biggest species of shark, but they actually eat the smallest little organisms. So they open that mouth and they swim along like a big underwater vacuum cleaner and suck in gallons and gallons and gallons of plankton.
Avery.
How many bones does that shark that you showed us have?
No, I think what she said is
They didn't actually have any bones, surprisingly. So if you guys touch the end of your nose or the top of your ear, that cartilage we all have, sharks actually, their entire skeleton is made of that. So that shark and all sharks, they don't actually have a single bone in their body. They're what's called cartilaginous fishes because the skeleton is made of cartilage. Great question. Great. And we'll do one more with Mrs. Scarfoni, and then we'll go back. I mean, with Mr. Vandershoot, and then we'll go back.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. So who hasn't had a chance?
I have to tell it.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
How do sharks sleep?
That is a good question, guys. So when we look at different sharks, and like I told you guys, a lot of their survival depends on how they are able to breathe. Okay, so things like our great hammerheads and our black-tip sharks have to constantly swim so they can breathe, right? So they can't ever stop swimming. So what tends to happen, and what we seem to think happens, because even things like dolphins need to breathe air. They can't breathe underwater. So what scientists have found actually is that dolphins and even some sharks can sometimes shut down half of their brain, give that half a little bit of rest, but they're still able to swim, they're still able to get water run over their gills. Dolphins can still go up and breathe air perfectly fine, but they still give their half of their body and half of their brain a rest. And then once that half of the brain has actually had enough rest, they'll actually turn it back on and then turn the other one off. So they kind of are able to turn half of their brains off for a little bit to really give them the rest that they need. That's a great question.
Good job. All right, so we'll go ahead. Next question.
Any more questions?
I do.
Okay, Joyce. Oh, go ahead, Joyce.
How many senses do sharks have?
How many senses?
Well, they do have all the same 5 senses we have. Sharks even have ears. They're located on the top of the head internally. They don't have the external part like we do, but they do have ears and they can hear. And like Anthony showed you, it's kind of hard to see on this, but you'll see sharks have all these little dots. So it's the ambuli of Warren Leaf, their sensory system that picks up the electrical pulses. That's considered the 6th sense, their extra sense. They also have a lateral line, which runs down the side of the body, which can detect vibration. So all these sensory cells. So it's kind of like 6.5 or 7. Sometimes the lateral line and the ambuli are grouped together. But all of these senses are incredibly strong, and this is how this animal can swim around and find its food and survive because of these senses that are incredibly strong. Great question. And we'll do one more from this group.
Okay, last question. Team Jeremiah, go ahead.
Why do they have different sizes of their eyes?
Can you say that one more time a little bit louder?
Why do they have different eyes?
Why do they have different sized eyes?
So different eyes. That's a great question. Okay. So like I said, guys, one of the really unique things about our nurse sharks is they live a different life than, say, like a black-tip reef shark or even a Caribbean reef shark. So where they live in different ecosystems and environments really kind of dictates, says what kind of functions their their organs are going to have. So like I said, nurse sharks have really eyes that are really good at low light situations. But things like our lemon sharks, which spend some time on the bottom or up in the top of the water column at the surface, probably have eyes that can adjust. Even things like tiger sharks, their eyes look a lot like ours, and they have their eyes are able to dilate and they can adjust for the different life situations because tiger sharks spend their time hundreds and hundreds of feet underwater, and then they'll sometimes be at the surface of the water. So the reason they have different eyes is to help them out in those different environments they live.
Question. All right, so we're going to go back to Mr. Vandershoot's class for a few more questions.
Owen, go ahead.
Are there any sharks that are invasive species?
That is a very good question. Matt, do you know?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of.
That's a very good question.
Really good question. We deal with here in the Bimini, we deal with lionfish, which are a big problem as an invasive species. But I've not heard of any sharks that have moved into an area and really become an invasive species. That's a good question.
Maybe it's one you can try and research and send us.
Let us know.
Yeah, send us an email.
Sounds good. All right, Colby, go ahead.
How many teeth can a shark grow back?
As long as the shark's alive, they are continuously making teeth. It's not like us when we lose our baby teeth and then we get our adult teeth and that's it. Right? As long as the shark is alive, they're going to continuously have new replacement teeth. This means in a lifetime of an adult shark, thousands and thousands and thousands of teeth. And these are all really important because if you think about sharks, this is how they get their food. Not only to kind of tear it up and chew it up, but also to catch their food. Right? So it's really, really important. But sharks will have the capability of having thousands and thousands and thousands of teeth in their lifetime. Good question.
Kevin.
How much species of sharks are there?
As of July of this year, there was 513 species. 513. There was a new species of cat shark discovered in the Philippines. So every single year, new species are being discovered. A lot of deep water sharks because big fishing nets go down and they trawl on the bottom and they bring up all these different animals. And there's always new species of shark that end up in there. And another important thing about protecting our oceans is there's still so much we don't know, including not only just species of sharks that haven't been discovered, but other species of animals that haven't been discovered. Right? So it's really, really exciting. And like you asked a question that we didn't know, scientists are learning new things every single day about sharks. We all learn new things every single day about these animals. They're fascinating, they're weird, they're wonderful, they're incredibly diverse, they have all different adaptations depending on the parts of the world they live, and they don't all look like you saw in great white. They come in a lot of different weird and wonderful shapes. So over 500 species.
Yeah, and one of the important things to remember about that, and protecting our species, like Jillian said, there are a lot of deep water sharks that are that we're just discovering. And as we continue to discover these new deep water sharks, one of the things that scientists have realized is that those are the sharks that are in the most trouble of being extinct. And it's not necessarily things like tiger sharks or great whites or Caribbean reef sharks that are really, they're in some trouble, but they're not as much trouble as our deep water sharks that we know almost nothing about. So it's really important that we continue to discover those deep water sharks and really try to focus not just on all the really cool species, but sometimes kind of the weird looking species of sharks that we didn't think were there before.
Right, we'll do one more and then we'll go back over to Mrs. Scarthoni's class.
Liam, go ahead.
Does like a megalodon shark or something like that exist, actually?
Megalodon?
Not any. Megalodon. Yeah. Megalodon has been extinct for many years. People like to think it still exists, but sadly, no, not anymore. But it was at one time a real shark.
And I know you guys have seen a program on television on Shark Week that made it seem like it might still be swimming around. It's not. It's actually been extinct for almost 3 million years. But it was it's the largest shark we know has ever existed. It's a very real animal, but it's no longer swimming around the oceans of the world. Good question. All right. Over to Mr. Garfoni's class for 2 more questions.
Hi, you actually have to start packing up now. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
We're getting ready to go home. So maybe we have one more quick question from anybody. Hey, Max, that's okay. Joyce? Okay, one more question. How come sharks have different skin? Why do sharks have different skin?
Well, a part of it is, like Anthony talked about, with where the habitat is. So a lot of them rely on camouflage, so they're going to blend in with their habitat. This nurse shark is kind of a sandy brown color. A lot of species are sandy brown color. They spend a lot of time near the bottom or under coral ledges, so they're actually camouflaged. And the same thing with pelagic species, which are open ocean. They're out swimming around. They tend to have a bluish silver color, and a lot of it acts as camouflage. And so it really just depends on the type of shark. Usually has a lot to do with the habitat they're utilizing, and also, being able to blend in as part of either hunting, either ambush predators who sit in the wake, or being able to kind of hide out from potential predators. Sharks are not always involved in hunting if you have other predators. Great question. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll say goodbye to the class. And then we'll Mr. Bimini.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.
If Mr. Vandershoot, if you want to do a couple more questions, we have time.
Yeah, can we? Awesome. Ryan, go ahead.
Out of the sharks that are going extinct, which one is the closest to extinction?
So which species of shark is closest to extinction right now?
Well, probably a lot of the deepwater sharks that Anthony mentioned, just because we know so little about them and they're so rare for us to see, because we can go out here and snorkel in 5 meters of water, but it's very difficult for us to go down very deep in the ocean. It requires submarines or special equipment to be able to be there and to see that. So a lot of those species are really, really threatened. Angel sharks, also sawfish, which are a shark. They're kind of like the cousins of the shark, but they're a very flat shark with a big long nose that looks like a saw. Sawfish is the most endangered marine fishes in the world. Sadly, there's a lot of different sharks that are actually are facing extinction and facing different threats. But those are some of the species that are really facing the largest threats, and their populations have gone way down. Great question.
How long did you have to go to school for what you're doing?
That's a good question.
Very good question.
We're all a little bit different here. It all depends on where you go to school, what kind of a program you take. A lot of it also has to do with what experiences you have after school or during school. So a lot of us have interned or volunteered for different places that have to do with marine things before we came here. So for me, I went to school for 4 years at Dalhousie University. I'm also from Canada. Before I came down to the Shark Lab, but I actually interned here for, I think, 4 months in total before I actually became a staff member here. And I also worked with Department of Fisheries and Oceans and a couple other places before I came here. So it has a lot to do with experience as well as school before you come here.
Yeah, exactly. And like, guys, just to give you guys an opposite end of the spectrum, I actually worked with sea turtles for 3 years, and now I work with sharks. So really, it depends on what you're really passionate about and what you really want to work with. So even if you guys like jaguars and want to work with jaguars, the best thing to do, just find ways to go work with them. And like Emily said, she volunteered before she even started working here. Volunteering is a great way to really give yourself the experience. You might not be getting paid for it, but you get essentially you get paid an experience that you can use later down the road. It's a great opportunity.
Cool, thank you. Sully, go ahead.
If sharks don't have bones, what are their teeth made out of?
It's a different type of enamel, so it's not the same as ours, so it's not what you think of, so it's a slightly different type of enamel, but that does last, whereas when you find fossils of sharks, you're not finding anything but the teeth, and the teeth are the reason we know so much about prehistoric sharks like Megalodon, like Helix prime, which was one of the original sharks, because of the existence of those teeth and them not breaking down because of that different material. They're not made of cartilage, but the skeleton disappears because it completely breaks down.
Good. Lexi.
What's the biggest type of shark?
The biggest type of shark?
Yeah.
Actually, the whale shark is the biggest shark. So have you guys ever seen a whale shark before? It's the biggest shark, but as Jillian mentioned before, it actually eats the littlest food in the ocean. So it's a filter feeder, and it actually eats plankton. So it's a very, very large shark, but eats very, very little food, but a lot of it.
Jilly.
What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite thing about your job?
I love that I do a lot of different things. So I do a lot of filming and photographing of sharks, and a lot of shark education with the Sharks for Kids program, and still get to do some of the shark science along with the lab here. So it changes quite a bit every day. I get to do something different. Some days I'm diving with sharks, some days I'm out helping the lab with projects, and other days I'm doing film shoots. So for me, I really love that it was always different, which is really exciting and a lot of fun, and there's new challenges. I'm sorry, this dog. You're a very good girl. So for me, that's my favorite part of it.
For me, contributing to the conservation of sharks every day. So no matter what we're doing, we're always doing different things, but the fact that our science goes towards keeping these animals around, hopefully, is just amazing to me. So I find that really cool.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is just being able to work with the ocean just in general. I absolutely love the ocean. I love fishing. I love snorkeling, scuba diving, all of that type of stuff. And I love being near it and working with it and almost being on it and in it every day. And really just finding ways to use science to help keep it safe and protect it and conserve it.
Yeah, on the same as all these guys, love doing all the shark handling and doing just getting hands-on and getting as much field experience as we can whilst I'm here. And also doing public work, doing the tools that we do as well. So it's really great getting to talk to everyone and getting them excited as much as we are about sharks.
And we'll do one more.
Perfect. Craig.
What's the biggest shark you've ever caught?
The biggest shark I've ever tagged was almost 4.5 meter tiger shark in Australia. So that's the biggest shark I've ever actually handled and worked with.
I know the littlest shark I've ever dealt with was 30 centimeters, so it's the size of a ruler, but I can't remember the size of the biggest shark.
Yeah, the normal size we kind of get here around Bimini and with the lab is anywhere from kind of like 275 centimeters up to 3 meters big. But there is a story here at the lab that one time when we were out in the Gulf Stream, which is a really, really deep part of the ocean that we're only about a mile away from, maybe not that far, they caught and didn't actually get to measure it, but one of the scientists was guessing that it was about 4 meters long. So that's right around 12 feet, 13 feet. So that's pretty big.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. Those are really, really wonderful questions. And if you want to learn a little bit more about sharks or some of the work that's being done here, you can check out sharksforkids.com and BiminiSharkLab.com. You can check out the social media pages as well for live updates of new projects that are happening here. Lots of interesting stuff. They're very active of keeping up with what's going on in the sharks that are touching the project, and learn just more about the lab if you're interested. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Mute it.
Very